which was there according to the the old accounting standards was 8798. So what I'm trying to get at, the difference in the versus figure is not so much. It's just to the tune of about 80 crores. So therefore, there is a case to be made that the numbers, while they have been restated, they may not be completely off when we're comparing it to our poll. But again, this is
I must point out, for the benefit of viewers, I think we should change that flash as well, because those are not consolidated numbers on the screen. Those are standalone numbers. I'm quoting from the press release right now. Standalone results, revenue comes in at 9486. We should update that flash. It's not consolidated total income. It's standalone. The standalone EBITDA is 3074. Standalone profit after tax is 497 crore rupees. 497 crores is the standalone profit after tax. So let's just go through and drill down and get slight more color into what the numbers are.
No, I think
it's
what they're flashing,
9486 is what the revenues are on a consolidated basis, and these would be this would be a growth of I think close to about 8% that we've clocked in on a year-on-year basis for the company's top line growth. If I compare this with the revenue growth that we've seen in the past, okay, let me just try and calculate that. But if I'm just trying to compare what the year-on-year revenue growth would have been in the last year or so. In the last quarter, the revenue growth was about 12.6% consolidated, and that has slowed down to 8%. So, compared to that, the growth has indeed slowed down. Typically we're very used to looking at Idea's numbers on a quarter-on-quarter basis, but now on account of the numbers getting restated,
so we don't
as of now at least we don't have what the previous quarter's numbers are. So I'm just going by the year-on-year growth, where the revenue growth has come in at 8%, and this is much lower than the 12.6% revenue growth year-on-year that we had in the prior quarter, which is also similar to the 12.4% revenue growth that we had in the, so what I'm trying to get at, the historical growth rate would have been about 12,
So the trend has come down. 8% compares to 12% on a year-on-year basis in terms of growth for Idea, at least on the top line. Just going through the P&L, I don't see any sort of extraordinary which they've reported, except for maybe the finance charges, and we don't again have a quarterly estimate of that. 988 odd crores is what the finance charges have spiked up to, versus around 441 odd crores, and that's possibly resulting in the pressure that we're seeing on the bottom line. Other income has gone down 66 odd crores versus 117.5 crores. Is what they've reported.
I just want to read a little bit of the commentary that's coming in from the company, where they're explaining the operational pressures and where they're coming from, essentially attributing it to the higher network and IT operating expenses due to expansion and multiple inflationary pressures, resulting in an overall operational cost increase. And I'm again quoting from the company's release right now. They're going on to say that the increase in depreciation and amortization charges to the tune of about 1,919 crores, as well as the interest and finance costs, reflects the additional charges on account of renewal of 9 existing expired licenses. Of course, basically what they've paid out for the license fee and the linked spectrum and acquisition of new spectrum charges, and which is why the pressure on perhaps the finance costs.
And I think things would have been worse if it wasn't for this dividend that they've received from Indus this quarter. Around 362.3 crores is what they've received in terms of dividend this time round. So I think that's basically one of the highlights in the standalone numbers at this point. We have Prakash Diwan joining in to take us through a little more granular details of the numbers and what his thoughts are. Prakash, your first thoughts. Standalone, total income up around 8%, margins of 32.4 versus 33.9%. And I'm talking about year-on-year, not sequential.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think at this stage the sequential number comparatives make sense. But Ekta, what seems like the blooper out here is while the revenue has just gone up 9%, the costs have gone up phenomenally. 15% is the addition of costs. And as Surabhi was pointing out, they seem to have definitely spent a lot on network expenses, IT outsourcing costs, as well as the depreciation, amortization, because of the capex that has been incurred. That is something which is kind of now coming to roost. So my sense is that has taken the entire growth that they would have managed on the top line, and growing top line for a company like Idea with limited circles has been a challenge. So, it takes away a lot of all the benefit that you have managed to do on the business expansion. The other thing is, of course, the kind of high cost that they are still incurring in terms of interest outgoes. So that is, again, because of the capex, and with the spectrum looming large, the spectrum auction, I don't know how they're going to manage keeping that under control, because that's really going to go up significantly because the kind of borrowing that they will need to do.
Exactly.
So Prakash,
let me just run our viewers through some more details. Once again, Idea has decided to focus on pricing, and that is hurting the company's volumes. So the the RPMs, or the revenue per, the rate per minute, the realization per minute has gone up by 3.1% quarter on quarter to 34.3 paise versus 33.3 paise. So it's gone up by 3.1%, and this is over and above the 4.4% increase in pricing that we had seen in the prior quarter. So for 2 straight quarters, Idea Cellular has improved its realization, but all this is impacting the company's volumes, because volumes the company is given have fallen by 1.1% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. So from 201.6 billion minutes, it's come down to 199.3 billion minutes, and the street was working with a volume growth of anywhere between 2.5% to 3%. So volumes for Idea have degrown this quarter, and that is not going to go down well with the street. So on all accounts, Idea's numbers, are going to hurt. The sentiment is quite weak. We've seen the stock slip close to about 30% since the start of the year. Ahead of the numbers, the stock was down close to about 3%, but Q1 numbers look to be a miss, and the company's strategy is clearly to focus on pricing, but it's coming at the expense of volumes. What we're trying to get at is the mobile data growth, and that I think has come in at only 4.1% on a
sequential basis.
On a
the sequential
basis.
mobile data revenue growth is just about 4.1%.
Yeah. It's
for the quarter gone by.
4.1%.
Yeah.
And strong quarterly mobile data volume growth at 13.2%. Overall data realized rate fell by around 8.1%, resulting in sequential mobile data revenue growth only limited to 4.1% this time. We have AMbarish Baliga joining in to talk about the numbers as well. AMbarish, these numbers are probably just a precursor to incremental competition coming in for Idea.
Absolutely.
Finance costs up around 185%. It seems as though the picture probably will get worse, wouldn't it?
Exactly. I mean, this is what I've been saying for a while, that the picture will get worse, just not for Idea, but for the rest of the telecom companies which are there, especially when Reliance Jio is launched. And as far as Idea is concerned, I don't know, last quarter, we had also seen that all the freebies they were giving, that was reduced. So clearly, they have tried to hold on to the pricing, which has affected volumes. And with the Reliance Jio launch at absolutely low prices, I think the volumes for the rest of the players will get affected. And those who hold on to the pricing will see that their margins get affected very badly going ahead. So I think at least the next foreseeable 3 to 4 quarters could be worse than what we've already seen.
So,
just let me add some more details. The company seems to be adopting a different strategy for voice as well as for data. For voice, clearly we've seen pricing or realization go up at the expense of volumes because volumes have contracted. But on the other hand, if you look at the data performance, data volume growth is at 13.2% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. And this is a significant improvement compared to the 1.5% data growth that we had in the prior quarter. And data realizations have fallen very sharply. So QOQ data realizations have fallen by close to about 8% and that is much steeper than what we've seen in the prior quarters. Just to give you a rough trend, in the last 4 quarters, Idea's data realizations have fallen between 4 to 5%. So this quarter, it's fallen even more by 8%. So very prima facie, the sense that you get is that on voice, they seem to be focusing on pricing at the expense of volumes, but they are clearly focused on growing the data because the data growth at 13.2% QOQ is a significant pickup from what we've seen in the prior quarters. And they are very aggressive in their data pricing because data pricing falling by 8.1% QOQ is much steeper than what we've seen in the past few quarters. So there seems to be a divergence.
I think Rima, you absolutely summed it up really, succinctly. And Prakash and AMbarish, please come in on this. The clear divergence that's playing out on both parts of the businesses. on the traditional voice business, the company is trying to, cling on to pricing, even if that means sacrificing a bit of volume. But data, which is how largely, increasingly, these stocks are getting viewed and valued, that's where the game has reversed. Of course, the 8% drop in data realizations could also be because these companies are preempting Jio's launch. We've seen the offers come through. A lot of that will flow through the second quarter as well. But an 8% drop in data realizations and a 13% growth, data volume growth. How is the street going to sort of digest this and react to this? And we also keep in mind, how Bharti was punished very, very severely because data volume growth was tapering off at a very, very fast pace.
Yeah, Surabhi, I think we should clearly realize that the future of telecom is data, it's not voice. And we've already seen that the data pricing has come down, including for Idea. But then it all depends on at what price point Jio launch happens. And I think that will be the benchmark for the rest of the industry to follow. So unless we know that, we really won't know as to how much lower pricing can go for the rest of the telecom companies. And based on that only, we can really talk about the future earnings for these. So I think we need to wait for that, but I'm very sure it will be lower than what most of them are offering at this point of time.
Okay. Rima, questions from Ambrish?
No, Ambrish, I just want to get a sense of what, the stock is likely to do from here on. It's very close to its 52-week lows. The stock has already taken a pounding. What happens from here on?
No, I think, these figures are much lower than what the street was expecting. I think the street was expecting a fall of about 23-24%. So this is worse than that. So I think we should see new 52-week lows for this stock going ahead. So, I'll not be surprised if we see either at least about 12 to 15% sort of a cut.
Prakash, do you agree? Can the cuts be that severe, given what Idea is doing to try and gear up for the big data war?
So let me just go back to your earlier question on the divergence. How do you explain this? And this is something that was evident from the management commentary when last quarter, when last 2 quarters rather, when and Rima would agree that they pointed out their focus is on profitable business growth rather than just kind of going ahead and adding numbers. So what they're looking at doing, Surabhi, is the adoption rate with the existing subscriber base to 3G and 4G is what they are focusing on. Very clearly, voice is something that's a mature business. You just keep on making it profitable. Don't really look at expanding. But the data business in terms of the adoption is one of the best that they have actually done in this quarter. It's a very aggressive conversion that is really working. So it's almost like 44% of their 27 million Idea customer base that they have started looking at 3G and 4G. And that's exactly where, they are getting people hooked on to that usage. And then, of course, pricing could come at some stage if RelJio doesn't get very predatory. So my sense is people will read slightly more into this particular aspect and not hammer the stock just because, there's an active strategy at work and it's work in progress. The kind of funding that they would need, the 65, 70, 68 billion, whatever they need for capex going forward this year, that is already the financial closure for that is also in place. So my sense is the finance cost also, while it will go up, is something which has got a clear lid on top of it, saying, okay, this is not going to grow beyond a particular number. So if they get the ARPUs right from 142, let's say if it kind of improves to anything to 160, 165 in September or in the next quarter, that is going to be a game changer because you already have a huge conversion at 44%. You keep on adding newer customers and you grow organically and within the existing customer base inorganically as well. So my sense is people will not find it so bad at the end of the day, while optically it does seem to be a miss on all 3 counts. I think the people will kind of start coming back to it. Could be like a Bharat Forge where the numbers might not be gratifying, but the commentary could probably resuscitate the stock in terms of some, shore up the confidence back into the stock.
Sure. Prakash, I think the street will also fear whether Idea has the wherewithal to combat any sort of competition which is coming in. But any which way, your sense in terms of a pecking order within the telecom space, if you had to choose and pick, what would it be?
No, so I think it's become a, two-pony race right now. It's just Bharti and Idea. I don't even consider Arcom as a contender. But clearly, Bharti has certain advantages because of the comfort that they probably seem to have given in terms of the confidence to take on RelGeo. But I wouldn't be surprised if Idea carves out a niche for itself and doesn't even compete that aggressively and keeps on working on its own captive customer base to keep on making itself profitable from increased ARPUs going forward. So it's a very different strategy. We really don't know right now. But yes, optically it seems Bharti would still get a little bit of a preference over Idea from what numbers we've seen this quarter.
Prakash, finally, stock reaction tomorrow. It's away at about 5 or 6% away from the 52-week low. Will the numbers take it back down towards that level, or do you think a lot of this disappointment on, the price war, etc., is already factored in the price?
So yes, there was no expectation of very robust numbers for sure. So I wouldn't say this is going to be a disappointment to that an extent. But yes, it's in line with the weakness that was expected. So it might not be so severe. Even if it tests that 52-week low, it could probably bounce back from there, is what I would expect. But people are not going to be in a hurry to come to this sector given the overhang in terms of the spectrum auction. So that's one of the reasons why these stocks will find it, and particularly Idea will find a little bit of rough weather in the days coming ahead. But I wouldn't really kind of believe that this is a reason to hammer the stock down to beyond that 52-week low to a large extent.
Okay, Prakash, as well as AMbarish, thank you very much for joining in and taking us through